Okay, so this week in science, we're moving on to, well, this chapter is our last chapter. We're moving on to the seasons. So this week we're going to talk about winter. So let's look at page 110. Okay, so God gave us 4 seasons to enjoy. Remember, we did cover the seasons a couple of weeks ago in writing, so we're kind of familiar with the seasons. So we have winter, spring, summer, and fall. Those are our 4 seasons. We're currently in our second season of the year, which is spring. So winter months are December, January, and February. Your spring months are March, April, May. Summer months are June, July, and August. And your fall months are September, October, and November. So year after year, we get every season that comes. There has never been a time where a season was skipped, right? We get the 4 seasons every single year. Okay, spring, summer, winter, fall. So let's talk about on 112 winter. So we just got out of the winter season recently. So that season is over for us. So winter, a time for rest. So winter is the coldest season of the year. Many places have ice and snow on the ground during the winter. The days are short, the nights are long, and that's because we have that daylight savings where the time changes, and so we'll have shorter days, meaning it gets dark earlier, and we'll have longer nights. But now I'm sure you've noticed that being that we're in spring now, that it gets dark late now, right? It gets getting dark now like 7:30, I guess you could say. But during the winter, it'll start to get dark around 5:30. So the days are short in the winter, but the nights are long. So, and that's because we have less sunlight in the winter. And because of less sunlight, it's colder. If it's snow in areas where it snows, they'll have snow on the ground longer. And also, plants will die because there's no sun shining for them to grow. So it's a time for rest. But even though the plants are dying, they're not technically all the way gone. Okay? So some trees will keep their leaves like an evergreen tree. And so whenever have you seen a Christmas tree before? That's an evergreen tree. That's why Christmas trees are put up during the winter because that's the only tree that's fully bloomed, like it has all of its all of its leaves on it, because it never dies. That's a tree that will stay alive year round, even in the winter. So other trees are brown and bare, but not the evergreen tree. It is green and full of leaves. If you look closely though, even though you might see a tree that's dead, there's still these little buds on the tree. And the buds that are on the tree show that after winter is over, it's gonna all the leaves are gonna come back out and it's going to grow again. God planned the world so we would always have plants. Many small plants die in the winter, but they leaves their seeds behind, and the seeds will rest in the ground until springtime. So whenever those leaves, so you know how in the fall the leaves fall off the tree. Well, the seeds that fall as well, they'll actually get buried in the ground and they'll rest in the ground. And that's why when spring comes back, a lot of things start to grow. Like when we go outside, you can see all the plants are back, right? And y'all gave me a bunch of flowers today. So yeah, that's all growing back because when they died, yes, they did die, but their seed rested in the ground. And when the right time comes, which will be spring, it all starts to grow back. Trees and shrubs have buds on their branches all winter long. The buds have hard covers. New leaves and flowers will lie safely in the buds, waiting for spring to come where there's a lot of sunshine and rain, which we had a lot of rain last week, right? That rainy day. And so we'll see a lot of rainy days. We'll see a lot of sunny days, but also rainy days in the spring. But that's because that's what's needed for everything to grow back. Okay, 114. Some animals hibernate all winter long. And so hibernating is a deep sleep. That's what animals will do. They'll go into this deep sleep. Well, they'll be asleep for a certain period of time. And it's usually in the winter you'll find animals hibernate. Some of them have burrows in the ground. They have little dens in the ground, little nests under the leaves and snow. Snakes, turtles, and frogs hibernate. That's why you don't really see them often in the winter. And I can say that because I have a pond connected to like the backyard of my home, and usually we would see frogs all the time, turtles all the time. But since now we're starting to see them again, but whenever it was winter, you would barely see them. And not just that, but that's how I knew spring was coming back because I would start to see them again. So it's just amazing how creation even knows what season it is. They know what to do. So during the winter, you will barely see snakes and turtles and frogs. They will hibernate. Woodchucks, chipmunks, bats, bumblebees. You don't see a lot of those animals during the winter because they're hibernating. They are staying asleep. They are staying away until spring comes, and that's when you'll see them to come out. They'll come out. So the God gave them this instinct where they hibernate. No one has to tell them to hibernate. They just know when it's time. So other animals will take long naps, but they might wake up to eat or go outside, like bears. Bears don't necessarily hibernate. They do, but they take long naps. Like they'll sleep for some time, but then they'll get up to go out to eat. And usually during that time they're having their babies as well. So whenever they come out in the spring, you'll see their babies, which we'll talk about when we get to spring. But most of the time, bears will take these long naps. So you don't really see them often in the winter, and that's because they are hibernating, but they're really taking more of a long nap. Other animals like woodchucks, chipmunks, squirrels, bumblebees, snakes, turtles, they are hibernating, so you will not see them at all until the springtime comes. So some fish, where lakes freeze, we don't really have that problem here, but in like colder places, the lakes will freeze, rivers will freeze, and the fish will just live under the water, underneath the frozen ocean. So imagine how cold it is, but they live there. So that's, they're used to that. Okay, so that is our winter season and what goes on in the winter. A lot of plants die. The evergreen is the only plant that's alive throughout the winter. But even though the plants die, their seeds are resting in the ground. And when spring comes back, those seeds will start to grow again. We have some animals that will hibernate in burrows and dens and nests, like snakes, turtles, frogs, chipmunks, squirrels, bumblebees. And some animals like bears, they just take long naps. They'll come out every so often, but they take long naps. So the winter is a time of rest. You'll see less animals. You'll see less plants because it's cold. It's a very cold season, icy and snowy season. So these are things that go on in the winter, okay? All right, let's go to your social studies.